Aussies spend an average of 10 hours and 19 minutes every single day using electronic devices.
10 hours?
So it's hard to imagine a time with... Are we cutting television in that? I hope so. It's hard
Sorry,
to...
question without notice.
Sorry, so something about it's great, you know, that's not...
Look, it's incredibly
hard to
great.
imagine life without mobile
Oh, it's
phones.
incredibly great and fantastic. But communication has come a long way since the early days of telegrams and telexes.
Even though we didn't very effectively communicate just then.
No,
well,
we're not very good at this. If you want good communication, grab a telex. Anyway, soon we're going to see the future trends coming your way. But first, let's go back in time to see how all this stuff happened in the first place.
It was a time when telex, telephonists and television were the top tech advancements. Australians watched their first TV broadcast in 1956.
Good evening and welcome to television.
Telegrams continued to be a popular mode of communication. Up to 20,000 of them were dispatched in 1964 alone. That same year, 2 million Australians used telephones through exchange services. The 70s weren't exactly the wonder years of technology, but they were a good starting point.
Hello, I'm Johnny Farnham and this is Countdown. The first edition for 1975 in glorious colour.
Australia's first licensed FM radio station went to air in 1974. A year later, the landline was born through telecom, and 5 million Aussies used the service. By the late 70s, keypads replaced rotary dials. Now we live in a digital age where technology is constantly evolving. In 2009, 72% of Aussie households had internet access. And last year, Australians owned 31 million mobile devices. That's 8 million more than our entire population.
Well,
That means you've got a couple.
no, you have a couple.
Well, you only know that because you called me on the ones that you have a couple.
So what does the future hold for the world of communication? Let's ask Futurist Chris Riddell, who joins us now live. Nice to see you on
G'day,
the couch,
Chris.
Morning, guys. How are you?
OK, how do we see the future... A small question to begin with. How do we see the future of communication for the next 20 or 30 years' time?
The future of communication in the next few years is definitely going to be more social. Social media has become a really important part of everything we do, and we're going to see that more integrated in the way that we speak, in the way that we text, and the way that we communicate with each other. It's all going to be about social.
What about mobile phone calls and texting, that sort of stuff? I guess that's the most common form of communication nowadays. Will this still exist, or are the changes ahead?
Good question, Larry. You remember the first phones that we got, the briefcase-sized batteries that we used to get with them? You could even text then. That's one of the first things we've ever been able to do on mobiles. Texting is not going away anytime soon. The reason is because it's so much more personal, it's private. If you phone somebody, you're actually interrupting them during their day, and they've got to be free. And texting seems a much more private, one-on-one thing. So that's going to be a continuing a big pack. We've seen apps like WhatsApp and so on. They're still all about texting and sending one-on-one messages. So we're going to see that trend continue.
OK, and so what will mobiles look like in the future? They were big, then they got small, now the screens are getting bigger. So what's the next step?
We've seen a big evolution in screens getting bigger on phones, and the smartphones that are out now are getting bigger and bigger, as we know. Actually, as we go into the next few years, we're going to see these phones, I dare say, disappear altogether and be integrated into things like our clothes. I actually predict that in the next 15 to 20 years, you'll actually be able to have a chip inside you that would be your phone as well. And we've already seen trials of this type of technology. It's in films that we've seen, those bit science fiction type films, but going ahead, I think we'll actually lose the physical separate device itself.
Where would they put the chip?
Where would you want them to put it?
Well, so if you can we just talk about this a little bit?
Sure.
So they put a chip inside you, and then you want to make a call. I want to call Kylie from the chip inside me. So how do I dial that?
You're assuming you're going to have to make a call. I think with a lot of this stuff that it's also going to be around being able to send a message or send a notification to somebody and have that integrated. So this adage, I think, of actually making a one-on-one call is going to disappear. It's going to be that in-the-moment type stuff. So you can share information, share what it is that you're doing through the devices. You might even have a wearable device. We saw Google Glass have a bit of a trial with that thing over the last couple of years. We're going to move into this world now of moving away from having a separate phone and having a device that's either built into us or actually one that we wear and have as a part of what we've got as a fashion accessory type thing. So it's going to be this much more passive thing that happens just generally as we're going around during our day.
I already have chips inside me, but usually Friday night, salt and vinegar. Companies are already studying, I'm going to have to read this, haptic feedback. What is that?
Haptic feedback.
I don't know what that is.
This one's really interesting. We've actually seen, so Apple, haptic feedback technology is around using technology to actually give you that sense of touch. Touch is one of the 5 senses that's really important to us. So imagine if you're actually buying a product. So you're going online, you've got your app, you're buying a product. Haptic technology will actually allow you to be able to feel the texture of what it is that you're potentially buying going ahead in the future. Apple have released their new MacBook recently, which has got this push technology which uses haptics inside it, so it gives you a feeling sensation as you're interacting with the technology.
Well,
you like that?
No, well,
I like that a lot.
I just think like a cashmere jumper or something like that.
There you go. Imagine if you could feel the texture and feeling, and all of these senses are where technology companies are trying to drive into us to really get us to engage with their brands.
Are you worried then, because you're able to see into the future?
Crystal ball
Are you
stuff.
worried that we're going to this is going to have such a high impact on human behaviour and how we interact with each other physically and emotionally that we're going to lose that basic stuff?
This is a really important question that's on anyone's mind at the moment, and the rate and pace of change that we're going through is phenomenal. We are always going to be able to choose as human beings what we use and what we don't use, and as humans that's always going to be there. We're always going to have to make choices. I think as humans we're often resistant to change, and naturally we don't like change that quickly, but we get used to it. You think about the old era. I remember when I was growing up, my mum used to think it was rude for me to have a phone on me all of the time at the dinner table when we were going out. We're now quite comfortable.
It still is to have it at the dinner table, Chris. You listen to your mother.
No, what if the morning show calls and he's got to come in the morning?
What if it rings now?
Yeah.
Quickly, we need to go, but telepathy. Just quickly tell us about telepathy and the role it may play.
This is really a play on the wearable devices and actually using devices that are built in with us. It's actually brain-to-brain, brain-to-machine communications as well. How can we use technology to actually to connect to us on the inside level? And we're seeing Cisco actually have been playing with this kind of technology recently, and how we can interact with technology through our bodies, and it's really interesting.
But what purpose?
It's for controlling things. For controlling things. So imagine if I could say, if we've got a device built within us now, my phone rings, I can just within my brain and within my head actually say to answer that phone as it's ringing through now. It's not that far away.
I don't want Kylie to have any more control over me than she already does. Did we skip the Maxwell smartphone altogether? Because I was looking forward to that, and it never ever happened.
I think
the shoe phone. The shoe phone.
You want a shoe phone?
We've so skipped over that.
Sorry, I'm so yesterday.
Yes,
that's old tech. That's gone.
Great to see you, mate. We love these chats. It's
Thanks
great
for having
stuff.
us on again.